Hello, my friends, and thank you so much for coming to spend part of your Friday, July 12th with me, 2024. It's hard to believe that July is almost halfway over. We're 10 days away from the July 22nd hearing of the Karen Read trial that has now become the trial that will go on forever and ever and will also be historical, I think, in a lot of ways. And who knows what will happen next. But the Commonwealth did respond to the defense motion, and I just received a copy of it like 2 minutes ago. It's 15 pages long. Craig is here. We're going to do an interview and a chat. And then after we're done with that, I'm going to read the motion to you, or the response to the motion to you. And I think Mark Betterow is going to come on to discuss it. So you don't want to go anywhere after this. But I'm so excited to have Craig here with us today. You may remember him as the guy, the tiny desk guy from the Karen Read trial, who was sitting behind, who was sitting behind Karen, I think, most of the trial. When I was in court, the day that I was in court, I was sitting in the front row right behind him. So we got to meet then, and I was so happy when he decided to come on the show. And I know you guys have a lot of questions for him. So without further ado, Craig, if you're ready, just give me a thumbs up. Dun, dun, dun. I introduce to you Craig Bates, he of Tiny Desk. Hi.
Happy to report. Thank you for having me on the show, by the way. Happy to report I'm sitting at my normal desk in my normal chair, and life is good back in California.
Well, the weather's probably much better, at least. You guys don't get the humidity that they get there.
No, we're in June gloom. Well, July. It's a little foggy out there, but no humidity. We're feeling good.
Lucky. It's the best coast. I call it not the West Coast. It's the best coast. How hot was it in that courtroom, by the way? Let's just start there, because before we get into your bio, we're watching at home, and every time the witness wasn't speaking loud enough, the judge was threatening to shut off the air conditioning. How hot was it in that courtroom?
Yeah, it was definitely hot. We were concerned. There was a juror actually one day that we had to actually take a break for, because I feel she was starting to experience, heat stroke type symptoms. And I think that was the moment that they decided, yeah, we better do something about this and get some AC units in here. So, yeah.
Oh, so they didn't have any AC before that?
No. Well, they might have, but they were so ineffective. As the courts used to love saying, that they were, this has been this way for 126 years. We've been trying cases in this facility, and you might have, but there were some things about it that certainly could have used some improvement, and one of them was the AC.
Yeah, and they just got Wi-Fi like a week before the trial started, by the way. And also, the jurors have been looking at the back of witnesses' heads for 100 years. So what's the big whoop?
Well, it was good of our team to bring that to the attention of the courts and get that changed, because I believe in many of the previous cases for many, many years, they didn't get a full opportunity. The jurors didn't get a full opportunity to see the witness in the way that they should have.
100%. And I mean, you obviously sit through a lot of trials, and I've been saying all along, it's so important to assess the credibility of a witness to be able to see their face when they're testifying.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yep.
So why don't you introduce yourself to everyone and tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background and your business before we get started?
Sure. So my name is Craig Bates. I am a California-based business that has been in operation for 42 years now. I started as a kid, 60 now, but when I started, I was given this opportunity by a woman who owned a court reporting business at the time, who was interested in developing a new branch of her court reporting business, which involved a very new concept back then, which was the idea of adding video elements to the discovery process of videotaping a deposition. So it was a very unique idea she had, and very much a pioneer in the idea of the whole thing. And so I didn't exactly know what that meant at the time, but I was certainly willing to go along with it at that point. I didn't have a whole lot of ideas about where my life might take me. And we worked together for a few years. And the next thing you know, we began to develop a pretty decent list of clients, and opened up a lot of doors and eyes to attorneys that, saw the benefit of videotaping a deposition, as opposed to just taking it down by, stenography. And we were kind of off to the races.
That's interesting because the only time, I mean, I'm a New York lawyer and I did civil litigator for almost 30 years or 30 plus years, whatever. I keep losing track of time. But the only time we would ever do a video deposition, back in the day was when somebody was literally on their deathbed and it would be like a day in the life video. So we did a lot of those. But, here, the videotape depositions did not really become a thing until the post lockdown world when people suddenly had a pivot to doing everything via Zoom or online or in some other way. But you guys starting doing that early, it must have been like pioneering it, right? So
Yeah.
you're pretty used to doing that.
Yeah.
And also, they wouldn't really allow it a lot of the time.
No, I think that in California anyway, Section 2025, the Civil Code of Procedure, began to then develop guidelines for, under which circumstances needed to be followed in order to properly videotape a deposition and have it become admissible. But yeah, early on, we had many witnesses that attorneys saw the value in terms of video recording their deposition, preserving their testimony. And while they were waiting for trial, many of them had actually passed away, waiting for a case to finally see its day in court. And, at least then we had at least a visual opportunity to present what it was they said. And I think it gave a much more of a three-dimensional look into not just the words, but the temporal understanding of all of it, which the written record just doesn't convey.
Yeah, agreed. And sometimes witnesses become unavailable, or they're on the other side of the country, and they're not going to be able to come and testify at the trial. So,
yep,
good for you for being on the cutting edge. And now you have your own business. So tell us about your own business and what you do, and how people can find you if they need to hire you.
Yeah. So in the background here, let's see if I scoot out of the way. There we go. This is the name of my company. It's been in, like I said, business for 42 years. We have grown over the years in terms of what we are able to provide attorneys like yourself and many others in personal, in the civil setting, in family law, in criminal cases, of course, like we just participated in, and federal cases. Fortunately, over time, as more and more depositions were being video recorded, everybody began to say, well, how are we going to now use these things? And that's when trial presentation kind of came into play for us and became very much a part of what we began to do more and more of. So there were certain softwares out there that we utilized that allows us to input all of the different elements that go into presenting materials at trial to jurors or just bench trials. And so we've been participating. I've now done hundreds of both bench and jury trials to help visually storytell cases through trial that we believe have really helped jurors get the information in a more succinct fashion. And it's done away with the butcher paper and Sharpies that may have just been utilized before. And now it's kind of come into its own. I think people all really expect to see things. We all look at our phones and our computers, and it's become much less of an idea of smoke and mirrors that we're trying to present evidence in. And it's really been a tremendous journey. It's been very rewarding.
At least the defense side didn't use smoke and mirrors, but that's something else that we're going to get into. So I don't know if you saw this, but before you came on board, there was a little discussion about actually, I think you had been there, right, the day before. I want to play a little piece of what happened with Judge Cannoni, and it's kind of weird for me to be side by side with myself. Oh, good, there I can cover myself. But this is what happened when they were discussing whether or not she was going to allow you into the courtroom. So I don't know if you've seen this, but it's worth a watch. Let's listen.
Sure. Yep.
Ended that with Friday or the Friday before. I ended that with saying twice, is there anything else we need to discuss regarding housekeeping or logistics? And I was told no by both parties. And then I get a motion the following April 19th, the end of last week, about wanting to use not just having an a technology audio visual assistant at counsel table, but to use it's much more extensive than what I expected. The Commonwealth filed their motion and it was allowed previously because it happens in
I just
every
want to
single
point out
case.
that in every single major trial like this is a major trial. You know, you've been here for it. You've been here for however many hours we've gone over this case. It's a major trial. It is not uncommon for a major private defense team to have an AV expert sitting at their table with them to pull up documents, to pull up exhibits, because the attorneys are very busy thinking about what they're going to say next, and they can't be worried about pulling up the right exhibits, getting things up on the screen, and all of that stuff. Remember in the Maya Kowalski case, there was one of the gentlemen at the plaintiff's table, because Maya Kowalski was the plaintiff, who was the AV guy. He was the guy that we were like, that's the guy. He's the man. He was pulling up all the exhibits, everything. Like, that is not a whack request. She's making this like she's never heard of this before in her life. How could they possibly spring her on this when the trial is supposed to start on Monday? And how could they possibly have room at their table for a guy with a laptop? It's almost like it's unheard of. We just got Wi-Fi last week. I mean, listen to this. This is insane. If you haven't heard it.
These courtrooms, and the Commonwealth shares their equipment. Please tell me exactly what it is you want to do. And I'm mindful also of the fact that during impanelment, while we were actively on trial in this case, in a critical part of the case, your audiovisual person, who I had never seen, was sitting where you are, Ms. Giannetti, talking to your client. So it sounds like he's taking liberties in this courtroom, and I need to know exactly what you need him for and what it is you intend to do. Keeping in mind also that we're going to be now in a much smaller courtroom. So.
Oh, yes, we didn't talk about that. They have moved the trial to a much smaller courtroom because apparently in the courtroom they're currently in, 6 of the jurors at least would be looking at the back of witnesses' heads. And while Mr. Lally said, well, no big whoop, they can still listen to their voices and hear their demeanor, they have agreed to move the trial to courtroom 25, which is way smaller. It is only going to have enough room in the gallery for both families and 10 press passes per day, which are going to be given out in a first come, first serve. Thank you for the Rangers score. Nice. Rangers up 2-1 against the Caps. 7:30 remaining in first period. Thank you, classy but sassy. Feel free to keep posting. And just a bit, can't have your egg on it. That was I don't even know how we watch. I talk a lot. Exhibits.
Yeah.
And I asked members of council, is there any? I know nothing about this, and I asked for information previously, so I could have thought about it and, seen a demonstration or heard something. What is it you're asking me to allow?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's very modest. We did mention that we were going to ask for this.
But you didn't do it in writing, and you didn't give me specifics.
Your Honor, we asked you, and you then said put it in writing. Then we put it in writing.
Oh,
but the first time it was brought up was.
Wait, so they did put it in writing. So she's wrong. She's not going to admit that she's wrong, will she?
After I had asked about logistics. Go ahead, tell me exactly what it is you want to do.
Okay, so it's a very modest request. Under ordinary circumstances, and we've utilized his services before, he would sit at counsel table and he would run sort of the AV to make it seamless and smooth for everybody, for the jurors, for the court reporter, for opposing counsel. He can put monitors at the request of the court, put monitors on the bench, a monitor in front of the court reporter, a monitor in front of the Commonwealth, and a monitor here, all small, relatively inobtrusive monitors. He also can run the system of AV, in other words, putting up evidence. I'm looking at evidence binders that Mr. Lally and I are going to be visiting about through the day today and tomorrow. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographs in here, multimedia, that's going to need to be played and shown throughout the course of the trial. Instead of walking back and forth and doing it sort of.
No, and that's what we do every day in this courtroom.
Right, and that's what he does every day in courtrooms as well. I mean,
that's right.
All we're asking for is an accommodation exactly like the Commonwealth has. It's just easier for us. If I'm up on a crossing.
Like, you're going to make us use the Commonwealth's equipment from 1978? Really? Is that what you're doing? Because of the wires? She's going to bring up wires next. This is Twilight Zone type stuff.
It
Okay.
really was.
AJ, smooth as butter, Alan Jackson is from LA. He's not having it. He's like, what do you mean I can't bring my tech guy in? I prosecuted Phil Spector. I've represented Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein. Like, you're telling me I can't bring in, as such, my AV guy with my, what? So eventually she did succumb, despite the fact that you were taking liberties before you even walked in that courtroom for the first time.
You know, I've never seen so many sidebars in my life during the entire trial, and it's just not a normal thing to see that. You know, the number of times where she felt she had to not deal with things in open court and pull everybody off for a private discussion. So
Yeah, that's uncommon, right?
very uncommon.
It's uncommon where I come from too. Where I come from, you have to state the grounds for your objection, and the judge will actually stop and wait for you to state your grounds.
Yeah.
Before allowing it or denying it, but everything was done sidebar here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that must have been a bit of a hectic moment there, because you obviously had already been working on this case for a while at that point.
Yeah. I had been contacted. I had been on the ground for at least 2 weeks, which then became kind of a moment where, had we hadn't heard it yet from her, but she was talking about, if I had known about this months ago, about what you guys wanted to do in terms of presenting. It just felt like she was saying things and then realizing, when you realize what it was she just said, that she's contradicting herself all the time about, that this is very common, but, I don't know anything about this. And it was
like it was an unusual request.
An unusual request. It was
as if the defense team should actually use Miss Gilman, who probably was very overwhelmed by all the stuff she had to do for Mr. Lally.
Yes.
And then eventually, I said that you were sitting at what I called a TV tray table, like those old TV tray tables that a lot of people apparently still have. When my TV dinners were a thing, and you'd have like 4 of them in a holder, and you'd bring them out and put them in front of the TV and unfold them and eat your dinner.
We quickly learned that I wasn't going to be sitting at counsel table, because that was just utterly, new and offensive and simply wrong. So the next thing I had to do was figure out a way that I could, at least in a compact way, sit near them, because I have to communicate with them as we're doing all this stuff throughout the trial. And that just ultimately became my hangout, right there behind them, in the smallest way I could be.
Like being at the kids' table.
So,
Did you? I mean, it must have been hard, because you had a lot of equipment, and you're like a tall guy, right? How tall are you?
6'4". So
okay. I'm 5'7". I'm not a giant, but people seem to think, because I was in pictures with much men who are not 6'4", that I'm giant. So I'm glad that you're tall. Thank you for being tall. And you were sitting in that what looked like uncomfortable, like a folding chair.
Actually, that was the best part of the whole thing. Was I was at least smart enough to be able to look around and figure out what kind of a chair I was going to sit in. So I did commandeer probably one of the most comfortable chairs that I could find in the courthouse, and put it there. So if there was any saving grace, it was that I was able to find that and make do. So
many people have commented that your posture was impeccable for the 9 weeks that you sat in that chair. So there are a lot of compliments about your posture that I saw. I was your big, Little Cupcake says that I was your biggest fan. Every day I would point you out, say that guy, he's the guy doing all the work. Craig's the guy doing all the work. And
it was a difficult environment at times. We weren't allowed to move about the space and move throughout the process without a lot of pushback throughout this entire experience. And maybe I can speak more to that as we near the end of this. But it certainly wasn't typical of what I'm accustomed to in the hundreds of trials I've been in.
Right. And was it one of the smallest courtrooms that you've ever been in too? Because that courtroom was a very wonky layout, and it was very small.
It was for sure. It was very, very small. And we thought at one point they might be able to take many of those days that between after the jury selection process was accomplished and when we were actually going to start trial, that they might actually do some modifications to the existing courtroom because from an accommodation standpoint with the media and with both families and other things that were going on, the other courtroom clearly would have been a better choice, but they elected to put us in the room they did, and we made it happen.
Yeah, you guys were, a lot of stuff was done on the fly and everybody pivoted, I thought, really well on the defense team. And you've worked with Alan Jackson and his team before this case?
I have, yeah. Alan and I met on probably 8 years ago when he was brought in by the other side in a kind of a highly disputed high-end family law matter. And he was brought in for a DV component of that marital dispute. And he's a standout, right? I mean, he is unlike many others. And he was somebody who I wanted to contact, but felt I couldn't, do that, of course, right there and then when I was working for my client. And so I reached back to him about a month later, and I think my timing was good with him. We remembered each other, and he asked me if I was interested in becoming a part of the next team that for a case that he had here in California. And we went and did it, and things went very, very well. And shortly thereafter, he asked me if I was ready to go with him to go do the Harvey Weinstein trial that happened in Los Angeles a couple of years ago now.
Wow. How long was that trial?
So that trial lasted 4 or 5 weeks total. The jurors actually in that case deliberated for almost 2 weeks before they came back with the verdict that they did. But it was another great experience working with him and Liza. Liza was along in that case as well. And it was in LA. So there were nights at least where I had the opportunity to drive home if I wanted to, it was close enough, or stay in the hotel. He, gave me the options of doing, whatever it is we want. Alan is a very straightforward guy, and I found him very easy to work with. And, I'm really excited to be on board with them and looking forward to everything else that they may have coming down the road that, we could continue to work together on.
He's not just a standout. I called him smooth as butter. And I even, members, put some smooth as butter emojis in the chat, please. I made special emojis from it. You don't know about this whole YouTube thing, but I'm going to teach you about this whole YouTube thing because you're going to come back after the 22nd. You already promised me we could do a part 2.
Absolutely.
And so I made special emojis, including a solo cup, a fan, a puffy jacket, one that says, what if any? And then there's a smooth as butter for our friend, Alan Jackson, because, and it seemed clear to us, and I don't expect you to comment on this, but I'm just going to point out that it seemed clear to us that a Massachusetts judge who sits in rural Massachusetts, and you spent a lot of time in Dedham, so you know that it is suburban, it's rural, it's Massachusetts.
Yep.
It seemed to us watching from home that she was not so happy about having an LA smooth as butter attorney in her courtroom. And at every chance, she reminded him that it was a privilege to be admitted pro hoc vice into her courtroom.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was evidenced by her calling as many sidebars as she did. I really feel that there was a fear that she would make a ruling or be called out in open court that she didn't want to have any part of, and I believe that was also part of it. I mean, I try to think of what are the reasons why that any judge would do that, and I didn't know if that was more common in Massachusetts or if it was something. I mean, maybe can you?
Yeah, well, it is a Massachusetts thing that apparently, when you object, you do not have to state your grounds because that way it reserves all the grounds for your appeal. However, it's up to the judge to decide in her mind what she thinks the grounds are. So it's very confusing for those of us watching and for those of us who are trial attorneys who are so used to having to state our grounds. And quite frankly, many of us felt that Mr. Lally just didn't really even know the grounds. It was just like, Mommy, help me. I object. And a lot of times she would look at him and say, Mr. Lally, do you want to object? Do you want to object? And he like, Mommy, help me. It was so weird. I've never seen anything like that before. It's like she was enabling him and sort of helping him. And Alan Jackson, first of all, David Yannetti is amazing too. I don't want to leave out David Yannetti 100%. Because I know that his mom and his sister are huge fans and they're probably watching right now. So hi, Mama Yannetti, and hello to Tanis if you guys are watching right now. they are amazing as well, and so kind and so nice. And when I went to court that day, they were just so nice to me. So I have to shout them out as well. But if I were Alan Jackson, and people can see my temper just from talking about cases on the show, I don't know that I would have been able to keep my cool as much as he did. And the one time that sticks out to me as the one time where he was just not having any of it was when they were talking about the verdict slips. And he said, no, we need a not guilty box for every charge. And you were in the courtroom, I assume, during that meeting, right? And she said, well, that's the way we've always done it in Massachusetts. And he said something like, well, respectfully, Judge, I don't care how you've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the way it's done. And then she looks at Mr. Unetti and says, well, you know that, right, Mr. Unetti? You've done that before. You've seen this. And he's, no, actually, Judge, I haven't.
Yeah.
So he kept his cool.
He did. There was another time I remember when he was being accused of going by, I think, making a visit to a school or, sounding something along the lines of witness intimidation or finding things out, which turned out to be completely false. And, he reacted, of course, in a way. I mean, David has a very beautiful temperament, and just when he does flare up, it's got to be something major. And something like that at that time was also, obviously very major.
I remember that he went to prep Lucky Lochran for his testimony, and he met with Lucky because Lucky said, come meet me at this school or something. And then it turned out that somebody worked at that school. I don't remember if it was Courtney Proctor or like someone who was related to Proctor, but it was Proctor who said that, Jessica? Yeah, Proctor said that.
Yeah.
And I think it was the school where his sister happened to work, and they started, accusing them of doing that on purpose. And it was just so out of line.
Yeah. I had a thought right when you first started the show about talking about the heat in the courtroom. And I said, God, nobody must have felt the heat any hotter than certainly Trooper Proctor or Trooper Paul. So
Trooper Paul. So the day that I came to court was the day that Jessica Hyde testified. That was the day where the pool photographer accidentally got one of the jurors on camera. And so we didn't know this because we were sitting in the courtroom. I don't know if you know this, but as a punishment, the judge said no more video for the rest of the day.
I do
remember. So everyone at home, my phone was blowing up like, what's going on there? What's going on there? And I mean, to his credit, she did not announce, listen, shut off the camera. I'm going to bring a juror in.
Yeah.
And so nobody got to see Jessica Hyde's testimony unless they had the Zoom link. That was a very, it was a lally-by day, as I like to say.
And
the lights were off. He was.
Yeah. Well, and then the fix, which was to place a webcam, on the witness stand, which would give anybody a very unflattering view to continue the broadcast. But I mean, I spoke to the court TV cameraman about that whole incident, and we both, almost said simultaneously, how unfair was that? He didn't know what was about to happen.
Right.
But it was just another point, for her to launch into somebody, and she did. And just more examples of that kind of reaction to things that were going on.
She reversed herself by the end, and then the rest of the day, the afternoon, was the direct examination of Trooper Paul. So that was the first day that he came on the stand. And I don't know if you remember this day, but because every day blends together after a while, but it was all lally all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched a playback last night of comparing the two guys, the two experts from ARCA, and how it played against Trooper Paul in this, in the category that they were up there to give testimony on, and it was just shocking, to listen to the level of professionalism that they had versus what we heard.
Yeah, I mean, it was night and day.
Yeah.
It was almost, and I'm thinking this too, if I'm you and I'm me, and if I was there for the cross-examination of Trooper Paul, which I was not, but you were, like, were there times during the trial that you just wanted to burst out laughing? Because I don't know if I could have held my laugh in, quite honestly.
Yeah, this was one of the first trials that I had participated in where it was being televised, and it was in such a small environment that you had to be very careful, of course. Every little thing was being, any utterance, every look, everything was all being picked up for all to see. And it takes a certain amount of control, I think, especially if you were someone like an Alan Jackson, who is very sure and very good at what he does. And to hear something that you simply just know is just not how it is. and it's got to be hard to maintain yourself and, just push on.
You had just, this incredible composure the entire time, which is not easy to do because it's tiring sitting there all day.
It is.
Especially with the victim's family literally looking over your shoulder. Like
Yes.
they were. So when I was in court, I was in the first row right behind where you were sitting. And then to my left, Mrs. O'Keefe was not there that day, but on other days, that's where she would sit. And it kind of, I didn't like how Court TV would zoom in on the conversations between Karen and her attorneys. I thought that was a complete violation of attorney-client privilege because everybody out there was trying to read their lips. But also the fact that people could kind of see what you were working on. I don't know, it bothered me.
Yeah, those were some of the constraints or the conditions that once we got moved to this small courtroom that we really had to be sensitive to. I mean, I have screen protectors on my computers, on my phone.
Right.
But with the way that, with the microscopic feel that, that was there every day, you really had to focus on what you were there to do and do it. And, let your guard down when you get in the car and drive home and just sort of reflect on the day.
Weinstein wasn't televised, was it?
No, it wasn't televised. They had, in that trial, there was a crush of media that was allowed in. They were outside the courtroom. They came, a certain amount of them were allowed to come and sit in the galley like they did in the retrial. And there were sketch artists there every day. So,
the sketch artist.
Beautiful.
My favorite person in the courtroom.
Yeah, it was beautiful to just watch how they did what they did. We actually used a lot of their images in the closing argument to remind people what the witnesses looked like while they testified. So we were actually able to get their work and put them in the PowerPoint that we used for closing, which, by the way, we weren't given restrictions like we were in our closing of 1 hour.
That was crazy.
It was crazy.
That was crazy. And you're saying the Weinstein trial was only like 4 or 5 weeks? This was 9 weeks of testimony, although, it was a summer schedule, like half days here and there and days off and weird.
Yeah.
Weird. You must have been, I don't know, maybe I don't want to say annoyed, but you must have been frustrated that you were away from home for so long and had all these like down days in between, although I'm sure you guys were working.
We were. Yeah. The hotel we were at over in the Seabridge area or the Seaport.
Don't dox it. Don't dox it.
Was worked out well for us. We had a great workspace to be able to, do what we needed to do to prepare for, each day, and everything went real well as far as that go. I mean, we were taken care of very well. We were there, and it helped pass, a lot of the downtime.
That's nice. What did you we watch a lot of this nonsense on certain mainstream media channels where they say that the people in pink outside the courthouse, they call them protesters, I call them supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find them to be out of line, nasty, yelling and screaming at people, or did you find them to be, a little bit more supportive? What was your take on the people outside from someone who walked by every single day?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think it's a beautiful thing. Look, I think that people in that understood what they had learned about this case really were finally hoping for their moment to show support for her. And you don't see those kinds of things in Los Angeles ever like that. And so I think that it was, I think it was great to witness so many people, so many dedicated people to a cause that they obviously, believe in their gut was not being handled properly. And I think Karen was extremely grateful for them to be there every day. Are there downsides to everything? Sure. I think it added to a crowd control issue at some points during the trial, especially towards the end, where we sort of felt going in and out of court after the closings while we were waiting for the verdict. I think things got a little bit hectic, and they hired some, or agreed to bring in some extra help. It seems like the state troopers were, getting more involved finally in terms of creating a path, in and out. which was good to see. But no, I mean, like I said, I think to see that to see that sort of love and support for Karen and her cause was a net positive for sure.
And these people were strangers. They didn't know her. When I came out of the courtroom that day and people wanted to take pictures with me, I was floored, first of all, that anybody even really knew who I was that wanted to take a picture with me. But so many people came up to me and told me their stories about, I mean, they live hours away.
Mm-hmm.
And one woman just broke down in tears and she said, "You don't even understand. I grew up here. This is horrifying what is happening."
Yeah.
And I said on one of my shows that Karen Reed could be any one of us. And it's frightening.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that John O'Keefe is not hit by a car.
Right.
I'm not being paid to say that. I truly believe that. And I've believed that since I started going over this case in January. I feel validated by what a lot of the fans call the crash daddies who came in and testified for ARCA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's watch your piece that you did on Boston 10. It's only a few seconds, but let's give your little moment in the sun here, because that was very nice that they interviewed you, and I thought it was cool. So let's play it.
Still ahead, a member of Reed's defense team joins us live. If you watched our live stream of the trial, you may recognize him as the man who sat behind Reed and her attorneys every day. So many of you sent questions asking, who is he?
Well, see, the O'Keefes are sitting right. I mean, it really looks like you could. They're so close to you.
We were so on top of each other. Yeah.
Like you could smell their breath. Like, you know if they had Chinese food for lunch. Like it's just too close. Too close.
I always had and will always have a place, obviously, in my heart for their
so sad
what they're going through. Horrible. And
But you know how just the energy, like you can feel the energy of people, and it's heartbreaking. Like if you're an empath and you're sitting next to people that are weeping the whole time, like you're going to feel that too. It's hard. Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah. And get to that maybe just before you play. And the added energy then of when we saw the Alberts. And,
let's talk about that after we roll this clip.
Okay,
let's talk about that, because that triggered me, and I was sitting at home. But yeah, we're going to definitely go into that right away, and then then we're going to talk about the sallyport video.
Sure.
And because I see some questions here, so yeah, let's just give you your minute here, and I just want you to know that when I watched this video, I screamed at the television about what he said next. Hold on.
Okay.
It's Chris Bates, and he will share.
It's Craig. It's Craig. It's not Chris. Hold on. Here.
You sent questions asking, who is he? Well, it's Chris Bates, and he will share his unique perspective of the trial when we come back. Welcome back. Tonight, I'm joined by Craig Bates, founder of Telegenics. Thank you for joining us, Craig.
Your company, welcome. Thank you for having me
absolutely. On. Your company offers audio and visual support in the courtroom. According to the Telegenics website, you play a key role in the strategy, planning, and visual presentation of evidence. So I got to ask you first, where are you based, and how did you find yourself part of the Karen Reed defense team?
Sure. So I am based in just near the Los Angeles area in California, and I was originally had done a previous case with Alan Jackson in the Harvey Weinstein matter that took place a few years ago. We had done some previous cases prior to that, but he wanted really to bring me along for this one, and we worked very well in that one, and he wanted me to come out and be a part of this one as well.
And in this case, we saw that there were quite a few visual elements presented by the defense. Talk me through where it all comes from. Are you recruiting the content yourself, or does it come from discovery?
So it comes from discovery. All the materials filtered into my possession throughout the case. There was a lot of preparation that would go on before each witness that the Commonwealth would put on, and we would make sure that we had everything lined up that we wanted to show each of them. And so I was kind of getting it piecemeal as the trial went on from day to day.
So one piece of the Commonwealth's visual evidence got a lot of attention because it showed video from the sallyport that was inverted, and there was sort of no disclaimer ahead of time that that was the case. And it appeared there was some level of shock in the courtroom from your team What was going on at that moment when you and the others realized that the video didn't seem quite right?
Right. We were looking at a video and soon began to discuss the how it was looking. We noticed, as it's being shown now, that the word police and the number 4 were inverted or reversed in its imagery. And, it took immediate attention to that and quickly realized that this video was, being presented on the first day of testimony as a mirrored or flopped image. And so that evening, we got a hold of the original, which you're playing now, and took the time to invert it. And of course, when we did, the inversion then also inverted the timestamp. So it became very curious to us as to how this was produced with an inverted video and yet showing the time in a corrected format that you could read.
That's insane. It wasn't the first day of testimony, was it? Or it was the first day of Yuri Buchanan's testimony? What was it?
Yeah, it was definitely not the first day of trial.
I think that's what you meant, because you did this right around.
Oh,
I think
we were
wasn't it
deep into the
Yuri's?
trial at that point. We were probably this had to be like week 7.
Yeah, it was during Yuri Buchanan's testimony. I remember that's when Lally first introduced it.
Correct.
And it was something that had just been turned over to the defense while the trial was ongoing.
Correct. There were piles of things that came in very last minute, and this was one of them. Because I think if had been given a lot of time or more time to have seen this beforehand, we wouldn't have, taken such a long time to figure out that this video was just not right.
Yeah, let's play this out and then we'll talk about that.
Sure.
Can you think of any other time you were sitting on the defense side of a courtroom when something like this happened, when a piece of video was being presented in front of a jury, not in the same way that you saw it during discovery?
Yeah, it was very unusual. The first time that we did see it as an inverted video. And of course, there's been so much attention drawn to the right rear portion of the Lexus, and it just seemed very odd. And we took a closer and closer look at it and soon realized that this was not right. And we then were able to present what really they should have seen the first time, which was a view of the video that showed it in its correct form.
All right, we've heard that the DA plans to move forward with a retrial. Do you plan to return for that trial?
If called to come back, I certainly would. Yeah, I am very dedicated to the Worksman Jackson Quinn team, and if called to do that, I'd be back here again. It was a stretch, of course, for the duration of 11 weeks to be out here, but I'm very dedicated to what I do and to this case.
Yeah, speaking of the length of the trial, we would expect, or at least what our legal experts tell us, is that the prosecution will pare down its case when it goes at it a second time. So how would that affect what you do?
Well, it's a little premature for me to discuss exactly what my role in a possible round 2 might look like, but if it means that we'd be presenting less material in the second go round, then so be it. I felt that we were really hand strapped. We were very much had our hands tied many times during this case, which was kind of an unusual experience in terms of trying to get evidence in and being able to show it to the jurors, like we have had an experience of being able to do much more of that in so many other cases that I've worked on.
All right, Craig, let me see if I can get you on a one-word answer with this. This ended in a mistrial. For you and the defense team, do you consider that a win or a loss?
I do consider it a win. It's certainly not a conviction. And of course, we believed all along that Karen was innocent. And we look forward to whatever challenge may be coming. I know that's far more than one word that you asked for, but I certainly believe it's much more than I ever believed that this was ever going to become a conviction. Certainly an acquittal is what we were after, but we'll take it in steps however we need to in the coming months and years.
Craig Bates, founder of Telegenics, thank you so much for your insights. It was super valuable.
Okay, let me be the first one to call for your recall, for your rehire for this mishigas of a case that seems like it's never going to end. So props to you. Was this the first interview that you did?
Yes. Yeah,
Is
it
it,
sure was.
is this the second one that you're doing?
This is the second one, and
Yay, me.
hopefully many more. I'm really, as I mentioned to you off air, I'm very grateful for your platform and your the way in which you conduct, this whole story.
Oh,
It's
thanks.
kind of, it feels good to be able to speak about the experiences that I've had, throughout my career, but also as it relates to the Reed case.
Yeah. So let's see. We have first of all, Kelly Reed is here in the chat. Hello, Kelly. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for the 10. Happy Friday, Melanie and Craig. Great to see you two brilliant people collaborating together.
Yeah, it's an awesome supporter.
She says we're both amazing and she loves us. And Kelly has started a fundraiser to raise money for Karen's defense because, as you know, defense costs are continuing to mount. And so there is a sale going on. It's a fundraiser. A little cupcake has the link. If you could drop that in the chat. I'll also post it underneath this video. Anybody who wants to help out, contribute to Karen's Defense Fund, check out Kelly's fundraiser. It just went live today. And any gift that you can give or buy some stuff, some food, I think it's popcorn, every little bit helps.
Yeah, I think actually, if I could say something, Nick
course.
Rocco asked me before we went on air today to make sure that everybody goes and buys some of the freshest popcorn you'll ever taste that he's apparently selling this weekend as a part of fundraising efforts. And kudos to Nick Rocco, an incredible support, a member of support to her. So many, but he in particular, and Richie also, Richie Keogh. Amazing. So
Microdots.
Microdots. Yeah.
Yes. Richie's Microdots, and Nick Rocco is now a regular on Court TV, so he's got that gig going for him. You can put that on his resume as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are these, and when you spoke earlier about, how did you feel about the fans and fans, wrong word, supporters of this terrible situation. It gave a boost of energy when you may not have had one on certain days to keep it on or keep pushing. Right. To see this to the end. So yeah, amazing support system.
So many people said that they loved everything that Microdots was doing. There was some stuff, I guess, that couldn't be shown in court. I just want to go back to, there's a little clip here of Karen's reaction to the sallyport video that was inverted.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just going to show this real quick, and then if there's anything else you want to say about that, that's what everyone's really been talking about a lot. So let's just watch this briefly. And this was I believe during Yuri's testimony. It was the first day. I remember it vividly because Alan Jackson crossed him the next day on it, and he said at the beginning, "Is there anything you want to change at about your testimony?" And he said, "No."
Right.
So here we go.
That is the sallyport two-bay garage at Kent Police Department with.
So Karen turned around, I guess, to her parents, because she did that a lot during the trial. We noticed from home, and said it's the wrong side. Was she the first one to notice it?
I believe she was. Yeah. I mean, Karen is such a bright woman. She had such the ability to provide the very much necessary information and details to the defense team. I wouldn't consider her your typical defendant in a case. She brought an incredible amount of resource. I mean, here you would think every person charged with a crime, as she was, would be able to provide such information, but she really was next level.
And she was very, very involved in her defense, it seemed. Watching from home, she was taking notes. She was whispering to the attorney. She was passing them notes. She obviously, some criminal defense just kind of check out and let their lawyers do everything. But it seemed to me like she was very involved in almost every single detail.
She knew detail. I mean, obviously, the defense team is brilliant, but adding her to the whole puzzle was unbelievably helpful. Everybody would say it. She just made things go. She was such a big part of making sure that everything was out there and as accurate and as timely as needed.
Yeah, let's let this play through. It's only a second or two more.
Yep.
It's an inversion of the video provided from Canton PD sallyport.
So you're the one that redid that video and put it in its proper perspective?
Correct. Yeah. The very first time we got the original from them that was played in court, I went through a reversal process in software that everybody uses. And of course, the first thing you notice is, when someone gets out of the car. I mean, are we in Europe? Are we looking at a car? When we're looking at the wrong video, we're looking at someone getting out of a car. Is this a car from Europe where people get out of the passenger side? That the tow truck driver just drove into the sallyport. So that was another, immediate indication that, we've got something very much that absolutely needed to be looked into. So
let me just let's play this and then we'll just
Yep.
take it down. That's just that it's the left, not the right.
Version corrects the perspective. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay. So
It just did.
Well, that's a different piece for a different day.
Sure.
But
S-
wow, tell us. I'm going to give you full screen for a second. Talk about your experience with that video.
Yeah. So everything I brought up so far was we had a video that was clearly being shown that was not the way that would be looked. I thought Alan Jackson's example of why this video was needed to be shown correctly was if someone had witnessed a murder and they were trying to describe the person who murdered them, and they said, well, I remember he had a tattoo on his left arm, and in fact the tattoo was on his right arm. I mean, I thought, to me, that was a great example of how important it is to get it right, to be able to show things in a way that's truthful, that's accurate. And we were being shown something, and the jurors were, most importantly, something that was just not right. And so when we inverted the video, we noticed that the timestamp obviously was inverted as well. And how is it then that the jury was being shown a video that was reversed, and yet the timestamp was rolling along correctly? So in any event, I think all of us get the idea of what was being shown, and the reason it was being shown was because nobody wanted to show Trooper Proctor or whoever that other person was that was mulling around the taillight area that we believe was picking out pieces of plastic and going and planting evidence. So the video they showed, of course, showed people that were mulling around the left portion of the rear of the Lexus. And they never wanted to show a video that was showing people mulling around the right side of the video, or the right side of the car, at the taillight area.
You can hear me when I'm off camera.
Yeah.
We were all wondering whether or not, this was intentional, because, nobody, first of all, Buchanan's testimony was so, he was so obstinate, and then when Alan Jackson asked him, well, what do you mean this is accurate? It's clearly mirrored or inverted. And he said something like, well, it's like when you look in the mirror, you still see your face. And what?
Right.
So we don't know if it was intentional. We got the impression that it was intentional.
Well,
This is your wheelhouse. This is what you do. Do you know of any CCTV or surveillance videos, especially in a police barracks or a sallyport, that would actually record that way in a mirrored fashion? Is that common?
Well, I don't, but I think I can also talk about an example of a video that came from that exact same system, which was the other camera angle that we were provided that had a missing 42 minutes worth of footage. It was very dark or grainy or granular. That there's many ways to describe that video and the quality of that video. And that video, from what we could see of what we saw of that, was actually presented in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, how does one camera record a reverse image and another one on the same exact system in the same exact environment provide a video that is the right way, but then was produced, like I said, with missing footage, with a very grainy, dark area, but just enough, fortunately for us, to be able to show and get testimony from the witnesses that, yeah, I can see the car. I can make out what it is we're looking at. So hopefully, that helped give an example, of what you just asked.
Right. And also, the timestamps were different. We noticed watching at home. I think on the grainy video that you're talking about, I even think that timestamp was like a different color. Like I want to say like one was blue, one was yellow.
One was yellow. You're right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look at me. Maybe I could be a
No,
detective too.
you got it. Yeah.
And I was looking at it when they first showed that video, and I'm thinking, okay, first of all, why is that guy getting out of the passenger side?
Right.
Who's that guy? And then I'm looking at the taillight, and it looked like it was broken, but it looked like it was the passenger side, and it looked like there was a lot of white shining through. So I'm like, oh, maybe it was broken when they drove it into the Sallyport. I was so confused. We were all so confused. And then people were pointing out, but look at the antique police car. The letters are backwards.
Right.
And people were saying, well, that's so that if they're driving behind you and you're looking in your mirror, it's gonna reverse it. So everyone thought that was on purpose, that the letters on the police car were backwards.
Yeah, but what about the number 4 on the door?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, yeah, I think we all know what was going on there.
It was like a smoking gun. Like if there was ever a smoking gun,
Right.
that was it.
It was one of those moments that you truly couldn't believe what was going on in that moment. It was
And
real.
then they broke for the day, so you had the entire night to go work on it because it was still there. I think they were still in Yuri's direct, right? And then you
I
broke
think it was
for the
a
night.
Friday. I remember it was the last day of court for a weekend. So I think we were, fortunately we had some benefit of time at that point to get our heads around what it was that we just witnessed.
Wow. I mean, have you ever experienced anything like that in any other case or trial that you have been on or
Nothing
covered?
like that. Nothing like that. Yeah, really something.
Lika Lagushka, thank you so much for coming in with a question. Not sure I can make the live. Question for Mr. Craig. Did the defense have more demonstratives that they were not allowed to use? Love you, Melanie Moss and Cupcakes. Just answer what you can. If you feel uncomfortable, we just say you can't say.
Yeah, I wouldn't say demonstratives that in terms of exhibits, maybe if we replace the word demonstrative with exhibits, I do believe that we were absolutely limited from my experience in being able to get documents into evidence and in front of witnesses. We were allowed to have them presented to the witness for review, but not allowed to show them on the screen. And so I felt there were many times that I wish we would have been able to have shown jurors. I mean, this is the whole reason I'm there, is to engage, to get the people, the trier of facts in this case, to be able to see and feel and touch and smell as much as they can to come up with the best, decision on what it is they're being presented with. So, yeah, I absolutely think there were. I said, hand-tied. I believe we were hand-tied many times in terms of trying to get things in there and tell a more complete story.
Right. I think that people were pointing out that there may have been some things that Microdots, created that were not allowed to be shown. And it's interesting because we did all the pretrial motions, all the motions in limine, and we did all that stuff. And we didn't hear a lot about any demonstratives or things that you weren't allowed to show. So you're right. It's easier. Well, first of all, when you're sitting in the courtroom, like I was, you can't really even see the screen. Like some of the Commonwealth exhibits were the font was so small that only when you're sitting at home could you really see it. So it was kind of better to be at home when I could pull the video, pull the exhibits up and freeze on them and we could all read them together, like the text messages and stuff like that.
Well, I think also there were definitely many times where Judge Canoni was not going to have it when it came to me wanting to draw jurors' attention to certain exhibits, like certain lines of written text. Or fortunately, we were able to, when the Lexus was being backed out of John's garage, at the point at which a tap occurred on the bumper of his car, we were able to at least show a blown up segment of that video of the tire rocking oh so slightly, but showing that the car had made contact with that, which, again, we believe was the point at which in time, where the taillight was damaged. Certainly not blown apart into, 46 pieces like, the prosecution wants to claim.
It exploded, and then as the weeks went by, it just revealed itself.
Yeah, I found it real interesting too when Officer Barrows was testifying. I mean, he was an officer from outside of the area, and I can't
Dighton.
From Dighton.
Yep.
And I found his testimony to be very, very real and accurate, and happened as it was. I mean, he gave, he was not part of he was just removed enough to give his opinion as to what he believed, had actually happened with that taillight, and thought that was another very telling point in the trial.
He was one of the most credible witnesses throughout the trial. It was between Nicholas Barros, the police officer from Dighton, who saw the car in the driveway and said it was cracked. It was not destroyed. I mean, he was convinced, and he was convincing. Him and Lucky Loughran, I thought, were the two most credible witnesses, and Mrs. Kolakithis. Loved both of the Kolakithises.
Yes.
And in fact, she said that Karen was so loving to John that her husband got some flack when he got home, when she said, "Why can't you be like that with me when we're in public?" And I mean, it was just so genuine, that testimony.
Well, it was interesting. I ran into Nick during deliberations, and I said, boy, Nick, if there was ever a night that your wife gave you good advice, it was that you're not going to go out drinking after, or you're not going to. We were done at the waterfall when we were done.
No after party for us. We're out of here.
Exactly. But I don't know where at some point in our discussion today we want to talk about the closing arguments and
bring it up now, my friend. This is your show now. Go for it.
I mean, just the whole visual experience of watching, the Alberts and Colin and Nicole, or Jen rather.
Right. So for those of you who may not remember or don't recall or can't recall, like Peter Gabriel, I don't remember, I don't recall. Jennifer McCabe came into court for closing arguments and was flanked by Colin Albert and Brian Albert. She pick a word out of their own playbook. And next to them was Kerry Roberts. And they came in and sat right behind Paul and Aaron O'Keefe for the closings. And during, I don't know if you know this because you were in the courtroom, but during Alan Jackson's closing, Brian Albert was in frame the entire time. So we could see Brian Albert behind Alan while Alan was accusing Brian Albert of, taking the life of Officer John O'Keefe, him and Colin Albert. And we watched his collar tighten. We watched his head was going to pop off. I mean, he was like uttering things under his breath, mouthing words. But tell us what that vibe was like in the courtroom. Go.
Yeah, it was something that I don't think any of us expected. Closing arguments were, they're always obviously already, they always line up to be the crescendo of the case. And this was a crescendo plus, watching the three or four of them, I can't remember who all was there, come in and stare down whoever it was they were there to stare down. And it was, I didn't think it was right. I thought it was bringing an element of intimidation into this final moment that was just not cool.
I have to agree with you. A lot of people defend it by saying, the Commonwealth can bring whoever they want, and it was the O'Keefe family because remember they moved to the smaller courtroom, so there were only, for those of you who don't know, there were 10 seats per day. It was like the bride side and the groom side of a wedding. It was like there was 10 seats for the O'Keefe family and friends, 10 seats for Karen's family and friends, and 10 seats for media, and that was it. Yeah. No public was allowed in unless you were invited by the family. So Paul O'Keefe said in an interview after the motion was filed about the jurors coming forward, he said that he invited them there because he wanted them to be there because he wanted the jury to know that the family did not blame them for what happened.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to be there. It could have backfired, but again, people in this, I don't know if you've seen the motion. One of the jurors through an intermediary, I think it was one of the intermediaries, said there were some text messages where they said we were intimidated when they said Higgins, but I'm assuming they meant Brian Albert was there during closings. And I was intimidated sitting at home.
Yeah. I mean, I just felt all throughout the trial that I really did feel that Paul was very conflicted with what really happened. I mean, Paul was up on when we talk about other witnesses that I thought gave, honest, earnest, thoughtful testimony, I thought I would include Paul in that. I mean, Paul mentioned he blew a kiss to Karen in the hospital. And I mean, who does that if you're someone who thinks that this person just killed my brother? And I think that he had his mom's ear a lot of this, and I truly believe that his mom has to be driving this idea that that Karen did this, and this is just how it is. And but I feel terrible for this whole O'Keefe family without a doubt. I can't leave this piece we're doing without expressing that it's a terrible situation. This is not bringing justice and closure for the O'Keefe family, and it's a terrible thing.
It's horrifying. And not only did they lose Officer John O'Keefe, and I say officer every single time I mention him because nobody else did during the course of this trial or pre-trial. And do you know if they were told not to refer to him as officer? I don't know if that was a directive from the court because I never saw a motion about it.
Interesting. No, I never heard that.
But she did rule that any law enforcement that came to the trial was not allowed to come in uniform. And if they even testified or were in the gallery, nobody could wear a uniform. That was in addition to her 200-foot buffer zone or whatever it wound up being in the end.
Well, they certainly met all the dress code and haircut requirements when they came in.
Nobody had hair.
Nobody had hair.
Did you feel amazing that first of all you're the only guy with hair that was there, and you're tall, okay, like you're 6'4" and you got a full head of hair, and there were low comps in the courtroom. Let's just remember that testimony. Low comps at the hillside. And I had to ask my fans, I'm like, what do they mean low comps?
To me, it became a crew of people that all just looked the same, thought the same, talked the same, were the same, and it was an interesting element to the whole experience. So
in addition to Brian Albert, every time he said yes, he would say yay yes, and I was like, oh my god, if I feel I'm going to stick an ice pick in my eye.
Yeah.
Yay yes, but no, my heart goes out to the O'Keefe family. It's tragic. Not only did they lose Officer John O'Keefe, their son, they also lost their daughter and their son-in-law. It is what has happened to them should never happen to any parents ever. It is horrifying. It is tragic.
Yes.
But I feel like in getting justice for Officer John O'Keefe's murder, we really need to get to the bottom of what happened to him. And in my opinion, he was not hit by a car.
Yeah, we need to. I mean, I think that the ARCA experts really summed it up best. I mean, they were only one of our 5 witnesses, or 4 or 5 witnesses out of the Commonwealth 60 some odd numbers. And, it's just the science and the math just don't add up to the Commonwealth's position that she did this. And
they say physics doesn't lie.
Physics don't lie. So
physics don't lie.
Yeah. Any other things we want to?
Let's see if we here we go. Dewey says I thought of Craig as the guy at the TV tray. Thanks, Dewey.
I was just missing my Swanson dinner. So
and the tinfoil. Remember the tinfoil trays?
Make sure you uncover the dessert because it needs a little longer to cook.
The little apple. That was like apple pie, right?
Exactly.
I think that's all they had was the apple pie.
Yeah.
And then you would, of course, inevitably burn the roof of your mouth on those apples because they were so freaking hot. After you spent 45 minutes, because it had to cook in the oven. We didn't have microwaves back then, right, Craig?
That's right. No.
These youngsters, they don't know.
Or if you did, you felt, your eyebrows falling off or something, from radiation leak.
LT33 says zooming in on the tire was huge. CW was overmatched. That was huge. And I remember that too, because that was the day that I was there, and that was at the very, very end of the day. And it was outside the presence of the jury, and Trooper Paul was let go, and you had packed up, and we were all getting ready to leave. And then she's like, wait a second, no, I want to see your video. And then you had to unpack everything. And you did it really in record time. Like, by the way, like your unpacking was on point.
Thank you.
And then she was like, okay, well, give me it on a flash drive. I want to bring it home and look at it over the weekend. But yeah, they were way overmatched. Could you imagine if they had to use poor Miss Gilman?
Oh, no. Well, she didn't have any technology at all that would, that was for trial presentation. I mean, she had to go in and out of each time she wanted to show photo viewer or whatever it was. And I mean, I think that's why, I do what I do. And I think that I was just, to me, I just saw a very different level of professionalism, going on with the way in which, this materials were presented. But,
oh, well, yeah, you're a pro. This is what you do.
Yeah.
That's why you get hired by the big guns.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I've had an amazing run. I've been able to work on some incredible cases out in California. notably like Kelly Clarkson's divorce, Dr. Dre's divorce. I have worked on Paul Anka's divorce.
Oh, Paul Anka. Wow.
Paul Anka videotaped Dick Clark's deposition one time, Kevin Costner's deposition one time. He was involved.
Stop. He had me at Tin Cup.
He was involved with Stephen Baldwin, who's obviously in the news now with his brother. He developed a water oil separator that they were planning on deploying in 2010 during the Gulf oil spill, and the two of them got into it with each other, and there was a mess. But Kevin prevailed on that one, and he's actually from my hometown here in Ventura. So
really, so
yeah.
You guys are tight?
No, but I've seen him and been around him. But yeah, it's just I'm
at Trader Joe's or at the Malibu, whatever that supermarket is in Malibu that everyone goes to. So wait, you were involved in his trial? You videotaped his deposition? Because this is the first content I ever posted on my channel. Those of you who have been with me, the OGs know, was all about Kevin Costner's divorce. I did 4 or 5 episodes on that. Because he had me at Tim Cup and longtime fan. Did you videotaped his deposition?
Not in his divorce. No, this was just back in 2010.
No, for that case though. Is that what you did for that case?
Correct. Yeah. And I actually was contacted to help if his divorce case had gotten to a point of trial up in Santa Barbara where it was venued. I was contacted by another LA attorney to help visually support that case. But fortunately for everybody, that case wound up settling before it got messier in the court system, and good for them. So
was he nice? Was he nice?
Very, very nice guy. Yeah. Very down to earth, very straightforward in the way that he gave testimony, from what I remember in that deposition, and a good guy.
I love to hear that, because sometimes it's like, don't meet your heroes, because you meet people that you want to meet, and then you meet them and you're like, wow, that guy's really an idiot.
Yeah.
Before. Oh, and also I just wanted to point out, because I forgot to say this before, that during your interview on Boston 10,
yep,
your sartorial splendor, your jacket, you were on point. It was, what an amazing outfit. I have you on a little tiny screen here, so I can only see what you're wearing today. But listen, you're impeccably dressed, giving those guys, a run for their money.
No,
on the other side.
It was funny. The people we stayed with in Florida while we were down there, I said, I'd been out on the road for 11 weeks and I had all my suits and computers. I came home to California, and 2 days later we headed back to Florida to go spend time with them. And I said, but please, do you have a shirt and a coat I can wear? Because I just don't want to pack another one and schlep it across the country. So as a good buddy does, he took care of me. So
David wants to know, I'm still wondering why there was snow in the outline of a car when they pulled Karen's SUV into the sallyport. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can answer that.
No, I don't know. All I know is we definitely got tired of hearing about snow, every time Lally had brought it up, which had to be at least 100 times.
Yeah.
In front of the house. So we get it. There was snow in front of the house.
Yeah.
So.
The trial time could have been cut in half if he cut out the what if any.
Yes.
And if he also stopped repeating the answer to the question in the next question and stopped talking about the weather. You would have been there for maybe in and out in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
People disappearing in the videos said caveman, which was another odd thing that probably stuck out to you.
Yes. Yeah. I was wondering what Laura McLaughlin's role, honestly, was in this whole trial. I didn't quite get that. So
I think she was just handing him documents, and then she finally did get up and argue something at the end, and I can't remember what it was, but it was not she wasn't real nice about it. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Dewey says, I think Karen Reed case proves that a few entrenched bullies with a handful of minions can absolutely coordinate a conspiracy. Thank you for that. Okay. P. Lola's mom wants to know, how long was Craig away from home? How often did you get to go home?
Yeah, I went home I turned 60 during this whole course of events. I flew home on Memorial Day during the trial, was home for 48 hours, managed to hit a wedding, a great birthday party my wife threw for me, and headed straight back, and had a little bit of downtime and was able to go visit Martha's Vineyard and Newport, Rhode Island while I was out there, just to see other things in addition to, quite a bit of the city of Boston. So came home once, and then one more time, on the way out.
Wow. Well, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Say happy birthday to Craig.
There we go.
Happy birthday to Craig. Craig, they love you in Ireland. Thanks, Harry Raven. Hung juror, would it be possible to replay the moment Bev's bailiff draws names to exclude jurors from deliberating? I did that in my last stream. If you want to watch that, you can go back and watch that, hung juror. From memory, it was the strangest drawing I ever saw. He did not show anyone what he drew. I don't know, because they kind of cut off the cameras right after he pulled those little bingo things out of the drum.
Yeah, I did ask about that with my clients to say, did you guys ever look in that barrel to see if there were like actually 14 different numbers in there? And it turns out there were. So
Oh, good. You can lay that rumor to rest. Thank you.
I can lay that rumor to rest. Now, I can't lay the rumor to rest if there is one out there that the number that in fact was pulled was actually the number read. It would have been nice to have seen some sort of a camera view of that, but I guess we're going to have to assume that was done properly. And
trust them or look the other way. But we can't confirm whether or not the attorney saw them, so we don't want to start any rumor or speculation. Cheryl, can he confirm Karen wasn't turning toward Paul O'Keefe and smirking like Paul claims in interviews? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There was, I thought honestly, I thought that Karen had a remarkable control over. I mean, how is someone supposed to look daily and nightly for 2.5 years while going through all this whole thing? So I don't know how anybody on earth could possibly fault her for the way in which she was in and out of court. I thought that she handled herself extremely well under the pressure that she's been under.
Every single micro expression was being analyzed and, picked apart. The things that the clothing she was wearing to court. It was a mess out here. The way that, and she was convicted on her facial expressions by the twits on Twitter. I won't even go on there because it's like a cesspool of mean. It's just mean. I can't stand the vitriol. Mary, did you notice? Mary said, did you notice the lighting was different when Karen Reed backed out of the garage when the judge wanted a copy of each side's?
There was meaning the ring video when she was back in the car out from John's house.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there definitely was a flash of light or something that occurred as she was backing out. I don't know if there was a motion light that maybe came on that was part of the same camera that's kind of, lit up that as we all saw it, if that was the question. Yeah.
Well, I think your quality of video was better than theirs is what she's getting at. Coffee Cake says, how did the jury not believe the ARCA guys? What was the jury's demeanor when they testified?
I have to say, these jurors were all very poker faced throughout. I mean, we know about some of the issues that the court had to handle with regard to, I believe, 3 of the jurors throughout the entire process. But I was hugely impressed with the timeliness of them. I've been to, countless trials where jurors just can't quite seem to make it on time to court every day. And I thought that they did an amazing job at keeping it together, being there on time, listening intently to every word, took a lot of notes. I thought they did a fantastic job.
They seemed to be paying rapt attention when I was there, and that was a dull day. And they were taking lots of notes, and they were engaged, and I felt like they took their job very seriously. So I'm glad you got that same impression. Andre Ujan, thank you for the 5. What about the video of the sallyport actually caught breaking her taillight? Berkowitz, Rafferty, Proctor, Higgins. Was it not allowed into evidence? Thanks, guys. I don't know anything about that video.
Don't either.
Okay, so that we don't even know if that video exists. But Lisa, thanks for the 5. How hard was it to play with an oddly stacked federal Fed deck? Very useful. Shared info versus overwhelming bias and cheap shot. Commonwealth roadblocks. Was it new level? Was this unlike any other trial that you've ever participated in with regard to potential shenanigans, potential rulings that were in more favor of one side than the other, or are they all pretty much the same?
Yeah, I mean, I clearly felt that there was a bias that existed during this case. I think that there's a natural, if there was going to be ever a lean from one side or the other, I think it would be more normal for you to feel a lean towards the prosecution by the judge in cases like this than certainly the defense. But can I speak to anything specifically on that? No, not really. It's just my own feeling.
I just feel like they were, the LA team was treated as outsiders, and which was a running theme for me anyway, in this case, that
Mhm.
Karen Reed is an outsider. She's not one of us. You're not one of us. Pin
Yeah.
it on the girl.
Right.
This is how we do it in Massachusetts, Mr. Jackson. No, you can't bring your own AV guy because we got one that you could use. And it was like the insiders and the outsiders in a lot of ways. And the
Yeah.
upside down. It was like being in the upside down.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most, as we're talking, more and more thoughts keep getting unpacked in my head. But I mean, I found it unbelievable that, and not after seeing the disgusting, stuff that Proctor had written about Karen personally, that he wanted to be, I think he really wanted to be their hero. I think he wanted to take control of this whole situation and get everybody's stories together. And he knew within the first 16, 17 hours after this happening that there were going to be no other people to point this to. And, now we got to figure this out. So
he called for the tow of her car at 2:30 before one piece of taillight was found.
right.
And, he went and he said he viewed the body in the emergency room, and he described the injuries to the arm. Tell me how that happens from a car accident.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
And there's no lower body injuries.
Right.
That's what I've been hanging my hat on since my Court TV appearances in January, when I was made to look like a fool by saying there were no injuries to, he's a pedestrian, to his hips, torso, legs, shins, feet. There's no bumper marks.
Right.
There's nothing to indicate an impact with a car. And I was gaslit into thinking I was crazy.
No broken bones, no bruising.
Nope.
Right.
Matthew says, thanks for the 20, Matthew. Was Craig, or did Craig ever feel intimidated by the folks to his left?
Never. No.
Interesting.
You felt their presence, of course, but no, I never felt, nobody ever said anything to me. And no, I mean, I have compassion for that family. There's no doubt. I always will. But I never felt intimidated in any way about them being there, other than, of course, the feeling that I think we all developed during the closing arguments.
Yeah. It was interesting because I went back, I was watching the openings again last night. And during the openings, Paul and Erin were sitting right behind you. And then at some point during the trial, they moved over to the other end. So they were right next to Karen, which I thought, why did they do that? That was really weird.
Yeah.
Lorraine says, I don't know how no one laughed when Jackson did the pirouette. That was comedy gold.
Ellen is so good on his feet. I mean, yeah, it was, of course, we had a discussion, about how he managed to hold onto his phone while flying 30 feet, and the phone was tucked up underneath his arm and landed, it landed on his back, and the whole,
it just did.
The way that they had their explanation of how this whole thing went down, had to be explained to the jurors. And I think the way that Alan did it, I mean, it's sort of like, are you kidding me? If you're left with the idea that you're kidding me, you haven't made anything up. You're simply expressing what happened based on what you heard them say. And it just, doesn't.
Everyone is very happy that you're able to join us today, and I don't want to keep you all day. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any final thoughts or anything that you would like to say to your fans, because you have so many fans now, you need to come back. We were big fans of the fan, but you actually took over as our favorite. So congratulations on winning that. I'll send you your trophy. Just tell me where to mail it to. I'll give you the full screen for any final thoughts and things you want to say on your way out.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned the fan. I suggested at one point that fan had like probably 50 or 60,000 followers. They probably ought to throw that thing up on eBay and contribute it to the legal defense fund. But anyway, listen. I was in deep with this case. I'll remember this the rest of my life, being a part of the situation, and we can just only hope that come July 22nd, that Judge Cannone or the powers that be bring a just resolution to this terrible situation, and yeah, that's all we can hope for at this point. And I really greatly appreciative of you having me on your show today.
Are you kidding?
As I mentioned off air, I would love to come back if we can circle back to each other after the hopefully if the can doesn't get kicked down the road any further on this, and we actually do hear something significant on the 22nd, that will try to bring some closure to this. So
that would be awesome.
Would be
Richie
awesome.
from Microdots coming in with the 10 says Craig is the coolest under pressure. Under pressure.
Really,
Do, do,
Richie's
do, 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 do.
great meeting Richie. I have a real need for his kind of talent that I'm planning on using. This was an experience for me that became very rich in experience for the point at which in my career, and to have a talent like him now to be able to help my other clients in personal injury cases and whatnot. I'm excited to continue to build a relationship with him. He's another standout in this whole experience.
Sometimes you meet nice people and they just become your friends forever. So let's keep in touch. Okay.
Let's do that.
All right. I'm going to thank some more people after I let you go. So thank you so much. I will be in touch. But it was amazing to have you here. And we were very, very lucky to be your second interview.
No, I appreciate it. I'd love to have, be on maybe with Mark next time, if that could possibly be. So
absolutely. We'll schedule it.
Melanie,
all right. So after
much.
the 22nd, when you can come back, that'd be fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. Just reach out to me.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. We'll talk.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Wasn't that fun, everyone? Wasn't that fun? All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to say thank you to some people. Pilgrim Shadow, thanks for the 10. Hello, Kelly Reed. Peace be with your family. Thanks for this live broadcast, Melanie. If you get confused, listen to the music play. That is a Grateful Dead reference from one of my favorite songs, Music Never Stopped. Thank you for that one. Lulu said, I'm outraged for you. I was in the stupid cross pool last night and saw someone in there imitating you. I was disgusted. I don't know what the cross pool is. I don't know if you're talking about me or Craig, but yeah, it's, that's what they do. That's all they got. Lori Life 360 for the win. Thank you so much for the 10. Says, thank you so much, Melanie, for all the great and fun coverage as always. Thank you, Lori, for being here and for being such a great part of the community. Thanks on top for being on top of the super sticker. Janice became a new member. Dewey Bev's all what? Now he wants a chair. Right, exactly. They did not want him in that courtroom. Super Trooper by ABBA. Nope, but we'll get it on there. Thanks, Dewey. There's a man passed out in the snow. Thanks, Adam Drives Helen, for making me do that. Appreciate you. I saw you in Oblivious Benson's chat, which was going crazy. I was watching last night. I was lurking in there. She had Auntie Deb on. It's hilarious. It's so funny. Squab Bob, thanks for the 5. Mr. Craig, does Miss Karen come out of this financially strapped? I don't know that he can answer that with regard to her finances, but I will tell you, it's a very expensive defense, and now she's going to have to do it all over again. So please go support Kelly Reed's fundraiser. Kelly Reed is Karen's cousin. And we dropped the link in there before. I'm going to put it below the video so that you can help if you so desire. Cubert, thank you for the 5. If it weren't for you, Attorney Mel, my mom, who's in her 90s, and lots of my Canton friends would have been lost without you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Cubert. And it was really nice to meet you outside the courthouse the day that I was there. Thank you. On top for another super sticker. Deneen says, Melanie, you've made such a positive impression on my life. God bless you. Always God bless you. Right back, girl. Dennis the Menace, thanks for tuning in from Canada, says, bingo, you draw, then show the ball. Yep. Peggy, thanks for coming in with a 10. Karen was found not guilty on leaving a fatal accident. How could they hang on second-degree manslaughter? We went over this the other night. We can talk about it some more. I'm going to have Mark on. We're going to flip over to another stream for 245. We're going to read the Commonwealth's response to the motion about the jurors and whether or not they acquitted on 2 of the charges. So that's what's going to happen next, Peggy. Thank you for the 10. That is what we're going to do. All right. I'm making that a separate stream. So when I hit end on this stream, you will be teleported over. Safe travels, my friends. 245. It's a whole different stream so that I could break this up. Come on in. We're going to start that one at 245. Mark Bedoero is going to join, and we are going to break down the Commonwealth's response to this motion about the jurors coming forward, having acquitted perhaps on 2 of the 3 counts. So come and check us out. Thanks, mods, for keeping it classy. Everybody, please hit the like on your way out and then hit it on your way in to the other stream so that we can get twice the likes. That'd be great. Hit subscribe, hit the bell so you'll know when I go live. And as always, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's not hard, really. It's so not hard. Your life will be so much better. See you on the other side, my friends.